When I first started collecting, like most people, I started out with Hot Wheels. And while I was in the store one day, I decided to explore the diecast aisle a little bit further and discovered a brand called M2. At the time, I knew nothing about it, but I decided to buy one car and check them out. And the first car that I purchased was this Chrysler 300C. In the package, I thought it looked really neat. It looked kind of like an old stock car with the engine horsepower on the hood and Goodyear on the tires and stuff. And I thought, this looks pretty cool, so I'll buy one and check it out. And when I got it home and got it out of the package, to be perfectly honest, I was kind of disappointed with it. I was at the time I was used to Hot Wheels Premium. And, of course, a Hot Wheels Premium is a fairly solid model. It's, metal body, metal base, nice rubber tires. It rolls fantastic. Even though it's slower than a plastic tire Hot Wheels, it still rolls really well. And then the M2, this was from the driver's series of M2, which we'll talk a little bit about what that means later. But it felt kind of light, and this plastic base, it seemed kind of cheap. The wheels were kind of skinny and they didn't seem to fit all that great. And then when you rolled it, it was just like kind of this rough, wobbly kind of a rolling thing. And, like I said, I wasn't all that impressed with it. And that kind of continued for the first couple years of my collecting. I tried a couple other models, and I just didn't warm to the brand. And, a perfect example of that was this. Because, again, this looks like a really awesome car. It's kind of a drag car version of, what is this, a Chevy... well, they just call it the Chevrolet wagon, but it's basically a Nomad. In kind of a drag version. I bought this. I thought it looked really cool in the package, but then I got it out of the package, and oops, it's missing a tire. And the tire was not even in the package at all. And so I was like, okay, I don't know about this M2 brand. So I took a break from them for a little while. But over the last 6 months or so, as you can see here, as I have quite a selection of M2 cars now. And my opinion of the brand has definitely changed. And what we're going to do in this video is we're going to go over the brand, and we're going to look at what the models are and how they do things, and we'll get an idea of how my first impressions were not really the right impressions. And if you want to appreciate M2 as a brand, having a little bit of understanding about what it is that they do and what they're trying to accomplish with their cars going in is a good thing. So anyway, we're gonna do a little talking about M2 here, and I'll tell you why I have softened my opinion of them quite a bit. And one of the first models that I picked up as I was continuing to occasionally sample models was this Olds 88, and this is from a different line. So this is from what M2 calls the Auto Drivers line, which is a metal body plastic base. This is from the M2 Autothenics line. And this is a metal body and a metal base, and then it also has opening parts. And this is a much more substantial model. It still has some glitchiness to it, you might say. As if you talk to M2 collectors, they will give you lots of horror stories about the behavior of their moving parts and things along those lines. But this is a really cool model, and this is kind of the heart of what M2 is trying to do, is these somewhat unusual cars, especially 50s, 60s, and 70s cars, a lot of times cars that no other brand would do. And they started out doing these kind of things. This one's probably not even the Olds 88 is probably fairly common compared to some of the other cars, like this Mercury. So this is a 1954 Mercury Sun Valley. And this is a car that I have never even heard of. But when I saw this release from M2, I was like, oh yeah, that looks awesome. That I have to have. And this is actually a fairly recent release. But this is the kind of car that the brand started out doing. These somewhat unusual 50s, early 60s kind of cars. And then they have expanded beyond that, and they have, of course, gotten into muscle cars and all those kind of things. as well, and they're most well known for that kind of stuff now. But this is the heart of it, and to me, this kind of thing really appeals to me because one of the reasons that I collect diecast is to learn about cars that are unfamiliar to me. I don't I don't know everything about every car, and a car like this where I have never seen it before and have never heard of it and don't know anything about it is exactly what I want to collect. I love this kind of thing, and so that makes me very excited about the brand, and to a great extent has softened my opinion of it. We're going to talk a little bit later again about some of the other weaknesses of the brand, because there are definitely quite a few weaknesses to the brand. But as I said, my opinion has softened. I'm not going to give a recommendation, without caveats associated with it. But it's my opinion has definitely changed. Anyway, moving on. So let's talk about again the diecast quality. So we have two primary categories of cars that M2 does. Let's use different examples so that we're not looking at the same cars all the time. We have the Auto Drivers release, or the Auto Drivers series, which is, as I said earlier, metal body, plastic base. It does have rubber tires. It'll still have the same inserted details and what have you, and separate parts around the car for all of the exterior details. But it will not have moving parts, and they'll look like they have moving parts because they're the same toolings as they use for their Authentics release, which is their second level of release. They share toolings across the two lines, but in the Auto Drivers series, they do not have opening parts. And so an Auto Drivers release will look like this if you find one in the store. It's a blister card, most similar to a Hot Wheels Premium. The packaging's a little bit bigger than a Hot Wheels Premium, and the card does come on a plastic base, but it's sold this way. And a lot of times, something that's pretty cool about them is they do kind of like an old school style advertising background, which is really neat. Or they may just do some other kind of promotional background on these releases. And so this is Auto Drivers. These come in sets of 6. There'll be six different cars in each release, and the plastic base. There's no acrylic box or anything for it. It's just the car on the plastic base. And if you crack it out, they're held on with 2 screws. And I personally take the cars off, and I actually just toss these bases. Just because I have way too much other stuff that I have to save. But I can see that a lot of people would want to save those bases. But that's the Auto Drivers series. And then there is the Authentics and related series, because it's not just Authentics. So we'll use this really cool Studebaker 2R pickup to talk about this. So Authentics is, as I said earlier, it's a metal body. It's a metal base. It still has rubber tires, separate parts and everything, and then you'll usually get some kind of opening part. A lot of times it's a hood, but they do also do opening doors, which I believe this one, if I can get them open, yeah. So this one does have opening doors. And one of the risks or criticisms with the brand is always that the moving parts may not always work 100% right. But since I've only been buying M2 in any quantity for the last 6 months or so, the quality issues that I've had have been a lot less than when I first was experimenting with the brand. So when I first experimented with brand, I only bought a handful of releases, and I had a lot of quality issues with that handful of releases. Now, as you can see, I have probably 50 or so cars that I've acquired in the last 6 months, and of those, the quality issues that I've encountered have been very minimal. So that's actually a very good thing now. So the Authentics releases come in these style of boxes, and you're mostly going to find American cars and you're mostly going to find American muscle cars in this series, but there are other things. So they do a few Volkswagens, like this Beetle and this kind of a tuned VW look. And they do a few JDM releases. I believe they only have 3, maybe 4 JDM castings. But they have this Fairlady Z. There's this Skyline, and they have a Datsun 510, and I think that and a pickup. They have the 610 pickup, Datsun 610 pickup. And I think that's about it for Japanese releases. And then in VWs, they do the Bugs, and then they have buses, and variations on the Volkswagen Type 2 buses. But a lot of the cars are going to be muscle cars, and they will share, like I mentioned, they will share the castings between the lines. And beyond the Auto Drivers and Authentics lines, they also have other lines as well. In this same style of packaging, there's a series called Detroit Muscle, which is obviously just American muscle cars, and then they do a set or a number of different releases like this. So this is a what do they call this? They call this a model kit release. So this is a Camaro, and it comes and you choose the engine block that you want to use and which wheels you want to put on, and then you put the car together, and it comes with this auto lift thing. So the cars that are in these are the same level of diecast as Authentics, which means metal body, metal base, and moving parts. Then they also have these 2-packs. So they call these auto lifts. And so here's in a couple examples of this VW. So this is the delivery van version. And so here you have kind of a tuned version, lowered tuned version on the top, and then a more stock version on the bottom with some graphics on the side. And both of these will be the Authentics level type releases, metal body, metal base. And then they also have these I'm gonna space on what these are called. These wheel and tire sets, Auto Wheels. Here we go on the back. The series is called Auto Wheels, and this is an Auto Drivers level release. So this will be a metal body with a plastic base, and again, it's kind of on this blister card packaging, although it's fully encased in plastic. And again, here it comes with the wheels installed, but it gives you a set of additional wheels if you want to swap them out, which is kind of neat. And then they have these hauler sets, which are kind of interesting. I have been really avoiding these just because I don't really have room for things that are this large. But I have picked up a few just so that I have some examples to show. So these come either with a truck with a trailer attachment, and then usually with 1 or 2 cars, or sometimes they'll have like a separate vehicle with a trailer and then another car here. And the cars that they offer, so far everything we've seen has been kind of old. And I mentioned that their bread and butter is 50s, 60s, and 70s cars. And this car right here, this 88 Ford Mustang, is actually the most recent vehicle that they have a casting for. So the newest car in their entire lineup is a 1988 Ford Mustang. So that shows you where their priorities lie. So let's talk a little bit more about the downsides of it. So this Auto Drivers series, this is currently on release 83. So that means there's been 83 releases of the Drivers series that they have put out. The current iteration is 6 cars per release. Earlier iterations had somewhat times varying numbers. They weren't always 6. But for those 83 releases, there is a total of 25 castings. So, yeah, 83 releases, but of only 25 different castings. So they do a lot of variations on the castings, but there are only 25 unique castings that have been used in the Auto Driver series. So as you can imagine, through 83 releases, there is a lot of repetition in the vehicles that you will see. So if you like to collect variations on stuff, then it's a great brand for you to collect, because you'll have lots of opportunities to get different variations. So like here we have 2 different versions of the Studebaker 3R pickup truck, and both of these are Auto Drivers releases, as is this one. So you can see that these two are fairly similar. They just kind of vary in the wheels, the color, and then this one has a hood ornament and this one does not. This one has the back thing, and I think this one's a really awesome release. I just picked this one up last week, and I think it looks fantastic in this kind of dark gray color. I don't know, looks really cool. But the anyway, the number of castings that they have is not huge. And they don't do a whole lot of new castings. So again, they're on Series 83. This is not 83, but we'll talk about that in a minute. They're on Series 83, but the last time they released a new casting in Auto Drivers was on Series 49. So not a lot of new castings. In the other lines, they have more variety. So in Auto Drivers, you're only going to find mostly American muscle cars and a few classic cars like the 57 Chevy Bel Air. This is an Auto Drivers release, and this is one of my favorite M2s as well. I think this car is absolutely beautiful. But you'll find these cars, and then you'll find just lots of American muscle like the GTO, this Dodge Charger, this Camaro, and although this is not a Auto Drivers release, that's a Detroit Muscle release, but they do use that casting in Auto Drivers. This Mustang was not an Auto Drivers release. This one was a wheel and tire release. What do they call it? Auto Wheels release. But this is an example of one of the castings that you can find in Auto Drivers. This Dodge Super B. So, I think I have probably confused everybody completely with so much detail about about the Auto Drivers release. But I think it's interesting, and to understand the brand, it helps to understand what they're doing and the limitations of the brand. And one of the big limitations is they do not do a lot of new castings. They have a relatively small set of castings. I'm going to guess that in total they have maybe 100 castings, if that. These other Authentics, Auto Japan, or whatever they call these Japanese releases, Detroit Muscle, and so on. Those do bring more castings to the table that are not used in the Auto Drivers line, but there's not a huge number, and they release them over and over again. So another criticism or weakness, or well, it depends on your perspective. A lot of people don't like it. Some people do, and that is the branding on the cars. So a lot of their releases are focused around putting some kind of branding on the car, and that is the heart of the release. So this was a Holley LS Fest release, and that's that's kind of what it is. It's just a Chevy Bel Air with Holley logos on it. Here we have a Chevy Bel Air with Chevrolet logos on it, and this is something that they do very common. And at first, I wasn't a huge fan of that. And even the first car that I bought, this 300C, that's exactly what this release was. It's not, it kind of looks like a stock car, but it's not really trying to reproduce a real world stock car. It's just a 300C with Mopar branding on it. And some people like that, some people don't. At first, I was not a fan of it, and it was another one of the reasons why I avoided the brand for a long time. But since I've started collecting it, I've learned that I actually kind of like this stuff. So here's another Holley release, this Olds 88, and even the Studebaker truck that I love so much, it's just Studebaker branding on there, and we have another Studebaker truck of the same style with Holley branding on it. So you can either accept it or you can not, and whatever. They do a lot of releases that don't have these kind of things, but at this stage, I think they've probably put out so many different versions of these things in stock-ish, looks that it's getting harder and harder for them to find new ideas for releases, I guess. And then they have some that are, just blatant, or not blatant. That sounds negative, more negative than I intend, but that are, as I'm reaching here for another car, they have a promotional tie-in with Coca-Cola. So there is a whole series of releases that, of cars, of just standalone cars of these transport sets and what have you in Coca-Cola related liveries. So they do Coke, Diet Coke, Sprite, Mr. Pibb, whatever brands Coca-Cola has and wants to promote by putting them onto a diecast car, they will do that. This is the only one of those that I have, and I got this one because, again, it looks kind of like an old stock car. It doesn't reproduce a real world livery, but it is, it does, evoke that idea in the style of the livery. So I think that's pretty cool. But again, it is basically just branding placed on the car. If you don't like that kind of thing, you're probably not going to like this brand very much. And, again, not every release has it, but it is very common. And it's something that you have to accept with the brand. One other thing, so they have other series. So this brand was originally founded. It was founded in 2007, and it was originally founded by the guy who created Muscle Machines. And so they have a series of these releases called Ground Pounders, which are slightly cartoonish versions of some of their castings. So this one has some really oversized wheels and tires. This kind of thing doesn't really appeal to me that much. So I bought just one example of this just to have one. Some of the other releases are a little bit more cartoonish. These are nowhere near as cartoonish as a Muscle Machines release, but they are, kind of in that same vein. They're just, intended to be fun releases. So if this kind of thing appeals to you, then it's kind of an interesting series. It's not my kind of thing, but that's okay. And let's see, what else did I want to talk about with this? Scale. So obviously, these are 1/64 scale, sort of. Most of the releases are not true 1/64 scale. Some of them are, but most of them run a little bit large. Like I measured this Bel Air, and it's just a hair too large. And although like this Mustang casting is actually pretty close, there was something else. That was, I think this Olds 88. I think this one's pretty close to 1/64 scale as well. I think maybe some of their earlier castings were more accurate than some of the later ones. But like they have a Mustang casting, which I have to stretch to grab again. So this Mustang casting, which is one of the most issued auto drivers releases. They've put out 34 different versions of this car in auto drivers. This thing is enormous. So it's way over 1/64 scale. So if you can see, if we put it next to this version, which this one's pretty close to 1/64 scale, this one is not even close at all. So if you're a stickler for 1/64 scale, it's going to be hit and miss in that regard. Some of them are there, a lot of them are not. Some of them are close. This Bel Air is pretty close, but it is a little large. And like they have this truck. I actually think these trucks that they do are pretty cool. These square body, I think they do a pretty decent version of this truck. However, this truck is also a little bit large. If you compare it to the Auto World, it is definitely a little bit larger than the Auto World version. And so that's a little bit of a downside. All right. So the other thing, base codes. So all of these releases have these plinths that have numbers on them. And these numbers, of course, mean something. So this is an auto driver's release. This is, the top number is the release. So this is from Auto Drivers Release 82. And then the first of the two digits or the four digits at the bottom is the year of manufacture. So this was a 2021 release, or at least when it was designed and produced. And then this is the serial number for the release. So this was the 60th release in 2021 in the Auto Drivers series. So if you look at this one is release 67, although this is a different series. This would be in the Authentic series, although technically this car is... They've now started to sometimes refer to the Authentic series as Auto Star series, because it's not just these classic cars anymore. It's all these other things as well. So anyway, so this is release 67 of Authentics, and again, this was the manufacturing code is from 2021, and then this is number 47. This is even though this says 21 on the base, like a Hot Wheels, if you're familiar with the way Hot Wheels work, if you look at the copyright date on the back of a Hot Wheels car, it'll usually be like, if it's a 2022 release, the copyright date will usually be 2021, because everything is prepared in advance and then released later. And the same thing happens here. So this is 21 on here, but this is actually a 2022 release, and this is release 82. So this is one back from the most recent release in the Auto Drivers series. So price wise, again, I keep putting this down and having to pick it back up. Auto Drivers, these will run, depending on where you get them, say $4 to $6 in the U.S. And maybe if you buy them on eBay or something, they might be $7. They're probably a reasonable value in that $4 to $5 range, which is what you'll find them for in most big box stores. Anybody who sells these are sold in Kroger's and in Walmart's. Target does not carry M2 anymore. And then the other series, these are more expensive, obviously. I believe they're around $7 to $9, or maybe $10. So like this one, this Ground Pounders release. This came from Hobby Lobby. Hobby Lobby is always a little bit more expensive, but so this one was $10. If you get one of these from Hobby Lobby, it's going to be $10 as well. Although if you find them at a Walmart or Kroger related store, like we have Fry's in Arizona, it's going to be in the $7 to $8 range. And then these other releases, these these hauler releases, I think they're $15 to $20, usually around $18, I think. These things are probably $10 or so. This 2-pack was $16 at Hobby Lobby, so probably a $12 item in a more reasonably priced store. And so I think this is pretty much my overview of M2. As I said, it's a brand that I really had to kind of work with a bit to gain an appreciation of. It didn't resonate with me at first, but as I've begun to collect it and I've found some castings that I really like. Like I collect Studebakers in general, so the Studebaker pickup had a huge appeal to me, and I've picked up several different variations, and I am now collecting this casting in general. So I'm trying to get more, and there are some pretty cool variations out there, like this tow truck version that is pretty neat. And this one was a very kind gift from Rick at Whole Lotta Zepp, who actually helped me to gain an appreciation for M2, because he sent me this Chevy Bel Air and this truck, and I believe this one as well, and that has kind of kicked off a little bit of a resurgence in my collecting of M2. So. I think that about covers what I wanted to say about this brand. I think it's a cool brand, but you've got to approach it with the right mindset. And this is going to be the 9th video in this Beyond Hot Wheels series, and I've talked about various other brands, and I think that's a key element of collecting is understanding what a brand is trying to do, and understanding their strengths and their weaknesses, and approaching them for what they are. And actually there's one other thing we should really talk about here, and that is the variations that they do on the castings. So this is we've seen these Studebaker trucks, like we have the tow truck, we have kind of a custom version and what have you, but then they do, like the Mustang, they do these kind of gasser versions of a lot of the cars. There's gasser versions of these Bel Airs. I don't have one, but they do have those. So like here we have an example of a gasser version of the 66 Dodge Charger, and then we have the stock boring version of the Dodge Charger. And so this is definitely something that they do to try to keep their releases interesting. So they have a relatively small pool of castings that they use, but they do quite a few different variations to try to keep things interesting. So I think now I'm going to stop. So if you made it this far, congratulations, and thank you for watching.